Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer, food maker, or artisan selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast.
I'm Kat Fields-White.
And I'm Bridget Myers. We're longtime farmers market managers, educators, and consultants. Today in our How-To series, we're talking about the how-to of ways to design and manage farmers markets vendor applications.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by MarketWorks. Escape the generic spreadsheets and endless emails and consolidate your market applications, space reservations, invoicing, and reports into one convenient program. It's easy to establish and update vendor profiles and create polished market maps to give your website and your marketing some extra love with MarketWorks' simple interface. If you're ready to streamline your market management systems, contact Chris at MarketWorks by clicking on their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
All right, well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everybody.
It's nice to be back.
Fresh start. I like January. It's
I
going
do.
smooth so far. We're just in kind of knee deep, or maybe neck deep, in conference prep, which is fun.
Conference prep, market prep,
Always market prep, yes.
all those things going on. You know, MarketWorks, the sponsor of today's episode, they bring all of their clients to the Intense Conference.
So clever.
Which is, coming up in March, not very long from now.
Yep.
2 months from now, it'll all be over for this year.
And we're at that point now where we're just counting down.
Now
to
we're just counting down to when it's over.
the day we get
not
to rest.
really. We're very excited about when it starts. But MarketWorks does a little annual meeting at the conference and discuss new features, give their clients a chance to suggest changes and additions.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a group party like we do for our market staff. It's like all the MarketWorks clients get together and meet each other in real life from their private group and stuff. So it's probably fun.
It's like a vendor party.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
MarketWorks folks. And it's nice that they can talk to each other. I think if you're using any kind of market management software or program or any way that you're doing your applications or managing your market, it's nice to talk to folks that are using the same type of system.
Yeah.
Even if you're using it a little differently, it's like, oh, you can talk about what works for you, what doesn't. Oh, you use that feature? I've never used that before. So just kind of, it's nice to get everyone together.
So really, it's kind of a little conference within a conference, because I think that's the big draw, too, for a lot of people that come to Intense is nobody else understands what we do. And so coming to the conference is that chance to, sure, hear great stuff from the stage, but even more, talk to that person next to you that understands about how hard it is to move barricades and why doesn't anybody pay attention to your no parking signs?
Yes, it's just nice to have somebody understand.
Exactly.
As much as my husband tries, he just doesn't get it.
Doesn't really get it.
He'll never really get it. So it's nice to talk to folks who are on the ground and doing the things that you do. So that's what we love about the conference.
That is.
And that's what's also nice about the MarketWorks meetup and other folks that are just using the same systems as you.
Yep.
And then we're really excited about the catamaran this year. We're at a new location than we have been in all the years past. And we'll be on site. So make sure that you reserve your room before the attendee block sells out, which is when? Or when is it closing?
It's like the first week of February it closes. So,
okay.
Which is... Things are coming up, folks. It's not
Coming
like
right
that's
up.
the last minute.
Yeah.
So the first week of February is only a month away from the conference. So yes, make your travel plans and also take advantage of the discount on rooms.
For sure.
Even with the discount, it's still a little bit higher than it has been in the past, but it's because we have so many more wonderful things that are included. You'll have some breakfasts, and we've got all of our meeting rooms in one spot, which is just a few feet from where you're sleeping, which will make life easier than at past conferences.
Yes, in the past, we've had a lovely hotel as part of our kind of group, but it was when we had our conference at like a conference center, but those two things were walking distance if you're Kat and definitely not walking distance if you're Bridget. So depending on the type of person that you are, maybe you were walking, maybe you had to find a little shuttle and just like a couple more, things to think about to try to go back and forth. But this year it's really easy because you can stay right on site.
Yep. And there's, coffee houses and taco shops within a block.
You can smell the sweet smell of the ocean. It's going to be lovely. Catamaran is actually like one of my most favorite places. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Like as a local, I go down and like hang out. They have movie nights on the beach. You can see the bay on one side. You can go across the street to the ocean on the other side. So
yeah,
it is really, I'm like super stoked that we're going to have it there. So
it's a conference and a vacation. It's 2 experiences in one.
2 experiences in one.
It's
and
like
you get
that
to
old
hang out.
ad.
Yeah. Even I get that. I'm not that old. So along with the conference this time of year is when we tend to look back at our systems and think about what still works well and what we might want to change up.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about applications, the actual physical applications. So there's so many different approaches and formats that various farmers market managers find effective.
Hmm.
We had an episode last year that some of you may have listened to that covered how the whole process works at different markets in terms of curating. It was valuable for vendors because it really explained what market managers are looking for and how to explain what your product is, that kind of thing. But today we're going to chat a little bit about how you design the application itself to achieve what you want to know from it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not really about filling it out and then getting into a market. This is more like on the back end. How are you starting it so that you're not wasting your time asking questions you don't need answers to and not wasting the vendor's time, making them fill out endless things that don't matter much and are just going to take up their time and yours with no relevance.
Right.
So,
For sure. So we'll be talking to, we talked to Cara Wooledge a little bit later in this episode of the Napa Farmers Market in Northern California. And we've talked to Kuhn and SJ Osborne of the Riverside Arts Market in Jacksonville, Florida about their approaches. So you'll be hearing some of that in this episode as well.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see how different people do different things.
yes, both very interesting approaches and philosophies when designing applications. And we'll talk about how we do our applications at our markets. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But I think kind of getting some guidance and hints and tips, especially if you're looking at changing how your application is functioning right now. Maybe you are getting a little paper application handed to you at the market and you want to jump into 2025.
Yeah, for sure.
Little technology. Yep.
So the first thing to consider is what's your goal with your initial application form? Do you want just enough info to let your prospective vendor know if you may have space for them or not? Or do you want complete info so you can move ahead and everything just kind of feeds into the right slots and you go forward?
And I see pros and cons with both of those approaches because I've kind of taken both of those. If you do just kind of like an inquiry form or like a short application where you can get like the nuts and bolts information that you need, then that's enough for you to kind of make a decision and they can move forward with the application process. But then later on down the line, it's like you want more like in-depth information from your vendor. So then like, what are you sending them, another form or something else they need to fill out or upload? And so then you have to kind of have them do that again. And it seems a little repetitive. That's kind of where I'm out a little bit right now with my process. Or just the complete like 10-page application where they have to upload every single thing and their insurance and all their permits and documentation and answer all the nitty-gritty questions and put information in there about what their business is. And that might be like a public-facing vendor profile on your website. So it's like very in-depth. So kind of balancing like what do you have time for? Like what do you have time to do on the manager side to look through? And what are you really looking for? Is your market full? So you're kind of just going to be taking those really specific like niche vendors that you still need at your market or kind of like
Or you're still growing and you have
Yeah.
room for maybe additional food vendors if you already got hot food vendors, that kind of thing.
you're looking for a lot.
I've always liked a full application. I've never done kind of an initial inquiry. I mean, I've answered initial inquiry emails where they'll just say, can I get in? And mostly I've said, I don't know enough about you. You need to fill out this application.
Mhm.
So that's kind of always been my way. And I feel like I've designed my application to have leading questions on it so I can kind of read between the lines and see if it's somebody that I think would be a good fit. But, when we get to it later in the episode, the conversation with Chloe and SJ, they're using a two-part kind of system right now where they do a little bit of an extended inquiry and then they do the big application. And I can see why that would work too.
Mhm.
So yeah, really, it's amazing how many different ways can be the right way.
Yes. And really, I think what we've talked about is make your application some kind of format that makes the most sense to you or to whoever's processing those applications. Because what I usually do if I'm looking at changing up my application is I'll look at a bunch of other markets applications because I get really good ideas about the questions that they're asking. But I don't want to just copy and paste straight from someone else's application because some of those questions on there or the way that they're asking them or the information I get from those applications, they're not relevant to me or it doesn't make sense to just the way my brain processes things. So make sure that you sit down and you design it for yourself. The vendors and farmers applying will need to kind of conform to the way that you're asking questions so that you can collect all of that data and that the same information is collected from everyone applying. Because when you're just doing kind of one-off conversations, you're not really getting all the info from everybody in the same way. So you kind of want to, if you want to really take a look at who is interested in being in the market, you want to make sure that you're asking everybody kind of the same questions.
Well, yeah, and sometimes you'll have an opening in a particular category and you've got a multitude of people who have applied to do that. If you've asked them all the same thing, it's you're comparing apples and apples, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's a little farmer's market pun.
Versus apples and oranges.
Oh,
Oh,
see?
yep.
Both go in the farm section, but.
Yep.
So are the questions on your application really simple so you can just check boxes, or are they going to be writing you a little paragraph and telling you a story? How do you want that information to get delivered to you?
Yeah, and that again, it's personal preference. You want to design your application to work the way your mind works, or whoever's processing your application, how they get information. But I feel like at least some short answers are important because I do want to know that they can tell a story to customers. Because that's, I think, why people shop at farmers markets. They want to buy from a human with a story. And so if they can tell me a story about what they're doing, then I'm thinking, oh, they'll be more successful. They can tell a story to their shoppers. Now, I will say that, and this came up when I was applying for some speaker spots, and then we've changed our conference application because I discovered a tool in many forms and platforms that lets you limit the number of characters in a response. And I think I might add that to my vendor application because I do want to hear a story, but I might not want to hear your whole life story.
Yes.
Or your whole life story and your sister-in-law's.
We don't need an essay. We just need an answer. And I agree. I like to hear a little story. And then also if you're like a makers only market, being able to have space for folks to tell you a little story will really kind of weed out folks that are clearly just reselling or don't really fall into your kind of criteria guidelines, just with those answers to some leading questions that you have. But yeah, at the same time, I don't need to hear stuff that's irrelevant. I don't need to hear how being in the market is really going to help them and their goal. I mean, like, we need a little back and forth. Like, how are you going to enhance the market? Like, why do you want to be a part of the market? What's your favorite thing about the market? Like, just make sure that they've visited and things like that. So kind of quicker answers that can still give you a lot of information, I think is key. So designing your application with those questions in mind, with the answers that you want to get.
And also, when you're deciding how complicated you want to make your application, how quickly and completely a prospective vendor fills that application out does give you some hints about how quickly and completely they'll observe market rules or respond to emails when you have a question about scheduling and that kind of thing. So including some things in your application form that might reflect a more or less organized mind can be helpful in judging applications. So that again is about how you design the form.
Exactly. Yes. How you're collecting the data, and then how are you going to compare and contrast the data? What's it going to look like on the back end for you? How are you going to see, how many vendors in one certain category you have applied? Maybe a specific hole to fill. How are you going to find that application to be able to fill that void in the market? So, and again, it depends if your market is growing and you're taking a lot of applications, a lot of new vendors are, what you're looking for, or if you're just really kind of filling those spots that become available one by one as someone leaves a very full market.
Right. Yeah. Very full markets and not so full markets, very large markets and not so large markets, the kind of community that you're in, those can all really affect how you want to design your application. We have Sarah Milner-Simons of Eat Festivals is going to be speaking at the conference. And she says when we were in an application conversation that we're trying to remove barriers to entry, not add them. So some markets, and again, a lot of times this is a newer market or a smaller market or in a community where you've got a lot of different ethnic communities and you've got maybe some immigrants and people that are not yet completely fluent in English, but they have good businesses and maybe they had a business back home where the permitting requirements were different and business practices were different. And so making an application too complicated for that group can be very daunting and intimidating, and you might not get an application from them. They may look at that form and say, they just have no idea how to manage it. So if you're in a situation where you're in a community that maybe doesn't require a lot of permitting, sort of the opposite of where you are, Bridget, with California is very, very regulated. There's a lot of permits and things required, and you have the ability and the time and the bandwidth to nurture new people into a market and new communities into markets. Part of what you might want to do is make your initial application not too complicated and then maybe work with them down the line to include the detail that's included there.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's designing your application in a way to be able to accommodate the folks that are going to be applying to your market and how the structure of your organization is set up to be able to facilitate those folks. I know we've had a question on our applications, like, is this the first market that you've applied to or that you'll be participating in? And then we've always put a note on there. This doesn't mean that, like, folks that have been in other markets or have been in markets for a long time, that doesn't mean that you get bumped to the top of the line. We don't necessarily always want that. Even at our big busy markets, I like to bring those new people in that are, really fresh and ready to go. It's going to bring something unique to the market. I don't want necessarily vendors, like a whole market full of vendors that you can go to other markets around town and see them every day of the week. I like having those vendors that are just at our market that people have to come to our market to see. And so a lot of times that's the new people that are just starting out. So that can definitely be a pro, but I think kind of explaining that on your application so folks don't feel intimidated by, oh, I need to list like 5 markets on here or else they're not even going to look at my application. But you do want to know, have you been at this market that is kind of casual about rules? Have you been at this market, which is a long time established market? And, must mean that you show up on time because I know that market manager doesn't put up with that. So having those questions where you are collecting the data that you want to know, that's going to be helpful for your process.
Yeah, I think so too. Those are really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
So at Eat Festival and at Growing Roots markets in Southeast Pennsylvania, they have multiple applications on their website under vendor applications.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really tightly design each of those applications to the category that the vendor's in. So vendors on those application pages click the box for produce vendor application or bakery vendor application or community group application, crafters. And so each of those applications has slightly different questions on it, partly to determine if it's a producer-only market, do they truly produce? Partly to determine very, very specifically in a granular way exactly what they sell. So at Growing Roots, for instance, on their produce application, they have a lot of check boxes with almost every kind of produce you could imagine on there, and you check off everything that you grow. Now, for us, I mean, when you look at an application, you're going to ask for a producer certificate because in California, they list every single thing that you sell. But in a lot of areas, there's not a function like that governmentally. And so they're asking very specifically what they sell. And then on the bakery application at that market, you check a box for scones and banana bread and croissants and cookies and really, really specifically so that they can balance what's already available in the market with what you're proposing to sell.
Yes, and it's so helpful too when you're trying to determine what space you have available at your market. Because again, if you just have a baked good category, okay, well, that's going to kind of eliminate some folks because you're going to say, okay, well, I have a few baked good vendors. I'm not going to add another one. But if you have folks in the market making baguettes and sourdough and you have a cookie vendor, well, then you probably want to add like a cinnamon roll and scone vendor. And so that other vendor could come in if there was a space for them to explain specifically what they bake.
Yeah, or somebody shows up with flan.
Yeah.
You're hitting a whole new kind of market of desserts that you would have written off if you just said baked goods.
Exactly.
So you can get hyper specific.
Yeah, so get specific enough for that. So yeah, you want to make sure that there's really detailed questions on there so that you're collecting the data that you need to make a determination for who is going to be joining your market. And so let's talk to another market director that has a very detailed application, Cara Wooledge of the Napa Farmers Market. Welcome to Tent Talk again, Cara.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So happy to talk to you, as always, on Tent Talk. So for our listeners who maybe don't know you from Tent Talk or the conference, can you just give a little background about the Napa Farmers Market and your position there?
Sure. Napa Farmers Market, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based here in Napa, California. We've been around since 1986, and I've been with the market since 2018. And my current position is executive director with the Napa Farmers Market. We are open year-round on Saturdays and Tuesdays, April through December.
Awesome.
Come see us.
Come on down.
I bet you'd like to close your weekday market and make it half of the year, wouldn't you, Bridget?
Yes, I would. That would be lovely, although I do know that the schedule changes. There's a whole nother layer of work that gets added when you go back and forth with seasonal stuff. So, yeah, great market. Awesome. So we're going to talk to you today about the application process. So what platform do you use to host your application?
We use MarketWorks, and that was one of the first things when I took over as market manager that we changed we decided on MarketWorks as our platform. So I don't believe I can't. It's hard to remember because this is before the pandemic, but I don't think that I went through an application process without using MarketWorks as a platform. So I never did my own paper application process. And I can't even, those are the real soldiers out there that do that. I don't know how they would keep everything organized. So,
Yeah, I think once you start using like a organized system, it's hard to imagine if you ever did it before or folks that aren't using more of a kind of process and system. So you're saying that you did when you came on, they were using like a paper and you switched over to
yes,
MarketWorks, yeah, to make it
correct. Yeah.
easier. Awesome.
Yes.
I do remember early on
Yeah.
when I first started, I think I found a file the other day that had literally paper applications in it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm so old. I was managing markets before there was an internet, I guess. I don't know. Why was I not doing that via email? It's very confusing to me.
Just want to see their handwriting. That's one of the things we check for when deciding if a vendor can do the market. I'm just kidding. Yes. So, okay. So MarketWorks is a great kind of application platform. They do all sorts of other things. So how has it kind of changed as you used it?
We first started using MarketWorks for the application specifically, and then the other things that were a bonus were the map that they create online. So we link that to our website, and you have a map. They also have the vendor profiles that link to the website. So it takes all that data of what is submitted in the application and then gives you an HTML code that you can embed in your website, which is absolutely fabulous. The feature that we started using more recently is actually the payment feature. So we link it with a payment processor, and we're also able to collect stall fee payments online. And that was probably the biggest transition because vendors were most used to paying stall fees in cash at the market, and that was something we really wanted to move away from. So that was a bit of a culture change, and I think some people still wish we did it the old way, but nope. This is the future. So, but the application really is the basis for the MarketWorks platform because that's where all the important and juicy information comes from that creates these amazing tools that you can use to enhance your market's communications with the public and with your own internal communications because it's so easy to communicate with vendors if they're all in the same system. You know, you have their contact information at your fingertips.
Yeah, everything's all kind of linked together. So with the application there, did they have parameters about how the app is designed, or is that all you? Do you like have the questions laid out the way that you want to, or is there kind of like a framework or a template that you have to use?
Well, I've been doing it for so long. If I remember correctly, it's a form builder. So you basically can, or what we did, and we live in California, so we've got a lot of regulations and a lot of information. So we built the form based on the information that we needed from the paper application. And so you can do that with a combination of, open-ended questions like short text boxes, boxes, check boxes, multiple choice. And what I really love about MarketWorks is working with Chris because he will walk you through it and help you with his expertise. And you're able to go in and design what works for you. And then if something doesn't work, you can edit it and change it.
So how often do you change yours? Do you each year kind of look at it and revise it, or does it stay pretty static?
It stays pretty mostly the same year over year. Our application process is open year round, but the majority of vendors will be applying in the next couple months. So our season, quote unquote, season starts in April because that's when our Tuesday market returns. That's when we're running both markets. And funny thing, when we switched over to MarketWorks, we actually started doing it on the calendar year. And then we realized that having applications due in December was a nightmare for the January season starting. So we switched it back actually to April so that gives folks a little bit of time after the holidays to come back to life and, deal with paperwork and online applications. So yeah, we refresh it, we revise it, just check it every year. And then it goes live again it'll go live again in the next couple months, maybe the end of this month. So my operations team is on it for sure.
That makes so much sense to move it to April. I never even thought about that. I mean, ours is open year round, so we're not really changing it up much. But I do know that a lot of folks have an application process that goes annually. Even if they have a year-round market, they start over at a certain point. And it makes
Yeah.
so much sense for that to not be January because people are so
Yeah.
disoriented.
Yeah, one of the features with MarketWorks, so each the information that is collected and then used for the map and for the vendor profiles is based on a season. So what we do is every year we create a new season, and then so folks do have to reapply. But it's pretty cool because MarketWorks does have the feature where if they are a returning vendor, their application process is much more streamlined because it can pull a lot of the information from the previous year and roll it over into the next year.
Interesting. Okay, so that's cool because we've always talked about, would it be a good idea to have people reapply? And I know a lot of markets that do that, but we don't. We just sort of carry it forward. But it would be nice to have refreshed information every year.
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for now. I just did a big application process for everybody who's in my market, and it'll be for new vendors too. And then I'm planning on doing it every year because then you just get those updated phone numbers and email addresses and things change, and it's hard to track all of that stuff. So then it's all in one automated system, which makes it so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And Cara, you mentioned it's got boxes and room for short answers. Do you use a combination of those? Is yours all pretty much check the box, or do you have them fill in some short answers?
Oh, there's a lot in there. There's a mishmash of everything. So, and the other feature that I forgot to mention was it does have the ability to upload files. So that's a really important one for the different types of permits that are required.
So the questions that are on your application, because I have seen your application and I used it as a kind of guiding when I was updating mine, just because you have a lot of great questions on there, and we're both in California, so we have to ask some questions, and then there's some other things on there too that you added, which were so great. But just for our listeners, what kind of things are you asking and why, and what are you interested in gathering from the vendors that are applying?
Well, obviously, first, the most important thing is we want to know what type of vendor are they? Are they a farmer? Are they specialty food? Are they an artisan? We also have space for community organizations that can come to our market for free based on, if space is available. So that, and then the other most important thing is the brief description of their products, and that is a open-ended text box so that folks can write it in. So that is one of the things that we use to make sure that we're not having an overabundance of a certain type of product. So we look at what people are bringing to the market, what sets them apart. Do we have enough of that? Is that something that we're missing? And then there's a lot of, we did include some of the questions in there for, I believe it was from information that grant makers might be looking at. So questions about, the background of the vendor, of the farmer specifically. So trying to capture some of those demographic information so that we can use that when we apply for grants. And then all the other good stuff is in there. It can be, I honestly think it's probably pretty overwhelming to folks when they look at our application, because it is one application for all types of vendors. So, there's a place for farmers to upload their certified producer certificates. There's a place for the food vendors to upload their food permits. So one of the things that we hope folks do before they just go straight to our MarketWorks online application is they talk with my market manager, Mimi Adams, and say, introduce themselves. And it's not a requirement, but it is strongly encouraged that folks at least reach out to our staff and just talk to us first before taking the time to submit their application.
Do you find that happens a lot? Yeah. Do you find that they do talk to you first, or do you just when your application's open, do you just start getting applications from folks that you have not talked to?
There's a few. I would say most people do at least try to email us and say, hey, we're interested. And I mean, it's even better if they're located at least in Napa or near Napa where they can come down to the market and talk. But yeah, sometimes there are folks that we just get the application, that comes through. And I would say that those are usually less successful unless it's something that's like, whoa, we don't have this specific unique product. But we really, it's farmers markets are about connection and community and relationships. So having that ability to feel a person out too, which is an important thing that is not able to be quantified in a online application, is it's not just about the product, right? It's also about the personalities, because sometimes, we'd like to see what the vibe is, how people are going to fit in. what type of vendor might they be. If, we can sort of get a gist of that through communicating with them, not just by reviewing their application, that's also really important too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, do you charge an application fee? Because you've got a pretty detailed application to go through.
We do. We have a $50 application fee. One of the things that we do, if we're being nice, which we usually are, for a new vendor, and it's non-refundable, on paper or whatever, but we ask the vendors, especially new vendors, to talk with us first, and they can fill out the application before submitting their application fee, just to review us, just to see if they're actually going to be approved or not. We're not trying to just, out people $50 for filling out an online form unless we know that like it's going to be a fit.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So that initial contact that you encourage, either coming by and saying hi or at least emailing and going back and forth, if they're paying attention, that probably saves them the fee if there's not a good chance that they're going to be accepted this year.
Right. Yeah. And then there's some times where very rarely folks are fill it out and then apply and they're waitlisted or they're not accepted and they didn't read the fine print and said, this is a non-refundable fee. We can refund fees too. Most people aren't that upset about it, but we're not trying to, this isn't going to make or break us every application fee. We can work with the vendor. We want to support them and how they can either join us or maybe find a market that fits them better.
Right. Yeah. And the fee really, the idea of the fee is you actually do have to invest time, either your time or your staff's time, to reviewing these applications. You've got a long, detailed application. It probably takes some time to go through.
Yes. And the other part of it is because there's a part of the application in MarketWorks that's the form that folks use. And we try to make it clear to people that this is actually going to be on your profile. So if someone if they put in, description of your products and they write fruits and veggies, that's the text that is going to be pulled and posted on the website. So a part of that is making sure that we have a consistency in what is being used on our profile. And we also do that as part of our work because we know folks have there might be a language barrier or just different writing abilities. So we go through it and make sure that the text that is being used for our vendor profiles has a consistent voice and properly highlights what they have available.
So you can go back in and edit that.
Oh yeah, you can edit everything.
Got it.
Yeah, we do that. We have that too. And I've run into the same situation. Folks will just either they don't realize that this is going to be like a public facing description of their business, or like you said, there's language barrier, or they're having someone help them with it because they're on the farm or something. So it's just not very consistent. So my staff that does the MarketWorks background stuff is contacting folks and saying, hey, would you mind if, do you want me to help you edit this a little bit? Or, hey, I rewrote this description for you. Do you like this? Is this okay? Can we use this instead? So that the tone is the same throughout all of the profiles that are on your website. So it doesn't look like a mix or that some people, maybe it looks like maybe some people understood or were given more time to make a better description than some. So we want them all to be consistent.
I always have to laugh when people, we ask for very specific descriptions of your product, but I'll have somebody at the info booth, for instance, and they'll say, so how do you apply? And I'll say, well, what do you want to sell? And they say, food. Okay, then. That's kind of a broad description there, fella. Can we get a little more specific?
I do need to know if it's food or not food, but let's go a little deeper. So, those questions are really important.
Hey, thanks, Cara Mae, for sharing how you do it. You do it well,
You're
obviously.
welcome.
And we're looking forward to seeing Cara Mae in March at the Intense Conference.
Right.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Cara Mae. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So at the Riverside Arts Market in Jacksonville, Florida, they're changing their application process this year. So we're going to chat with Chloe Kuhn and S.J. Osborne about that, why they're doing it, what that process is, and what they hope to accomplish.
Awesome. So welcome to Tent Talk, Chloe and SJ. Just before we get started, if you can just give us, each of you, a little personal, professional background that led you to working at the market and what your positions are at the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I can go first. So I'm Chloe Kuhn. I'm the market director. This is a new role for me. I initially started as our market manager, and I've been with the market for about 2 years now. My professional background, like I think many in farmers markets, is really varied and it's bounced around. I've been a zookeeper, I've been a preschool teacher, I've worked at a science museum, but this seems like a combination of all of the people skills and professional skills that I've kind of gathered throughout the years. So just really exciting job, and I love it. And SJ, yeah, I'll say with Chloe. So I moved here about 2 years ago, maybe a little over now. And outside of, moving to Riverside, which is just a neighborhood that I love, got to know, went to the Riverside Arts Market. It's a staple in the neighborhood. Before that, I've kind of always worked for small businesses for quite a long time, and all the other places that I've worked and lived. And so when I got to Riverside, working with small businesses here and going to the Riverside Arts Market, found out there was, job opening, had to do it. But my job has varied as well. It's kind of been all over the place with salons, service industry, that sort of thing, prosthetic sales, just kind of all over the place.
All relevant. So, SJ, what is your role at the market now?
I'm the market manager. I'm the new market manager.
Awesome. Wonderful. I feel like zookeeper is like the most relevant experience that one could have.
Weirdly, yeah, I think people are always surprised. They see, I mean, people don't, I think, always anticipate how dirty this job can be and how much scooping up of assorted things that fall on the ground. And I'm a pro. It just doesn't faze me, Dog accident, got it. I'm right there.
Love it. So relevant.
Probably no. And, I mean, maybe it's a step up. There's no elephant stuff to manage, right?
That's true. Yeah. It's less volume.
There you go. You're stepping it up. So tell us a little bit about the Riverside Arts Market. When did the market start, and like what day of the week is it? Is it year round or seasonal? Kind of average number of vendors you have at the market?
Absolutely. So we're a weekly arts and farmers market. We celebrated our 15th anniversary last March, so we'll be coming up on year 16. We are a year-round market. It wasn't always that way, but we have been operating like that for quite some time now. We get the benefit of, Florida being a place that you can operate year-round. We also are underneath a interstate bridge, so we have year-round protection from the weather, which is really nice, and allows us to operate in all of Florida's seasons, which if you're not Floridian, Florida seasons are hot and not hot, but that's really it, or wet. But we're weekly. We can see about 150 vendors each week. We have a little over 300 that participate, but we have everyone that comes, twice a year to weekly and everything in between. So we really kind of get a large variety of participation. And our visitors are also highly varied, but generally we usually say our average is somewhere around 4,000, but on a really busy day, can get up to 8,000 or so.
Nice. Okay, so great size market. And yeah, I think folks don't realize even if you just have 150 at the market every week, it's like your roster of vendors can sometimes be a lot deeper than that. That's how I am too with the alternating vendors or substitutes or a couple seasonal farmers and things like that. So so a lot of vendors sounds like you are dealing with. Do you have a lot of farmers at the market, or is it more focused on non-farm?
It's a mixture. I would say our farmers is a smaller percentage. We've probably got about 2 dozen or so that are traditionally farm in some way. They're a grower or agriculture or meat vendor, that sort of thing. And then another probably 2 dozen that would fall into some sort of grocery category. And then another 2 dozen or so that are hot foods. So we kind of see it all. The Riverside Arts Market, really, we view arts as all encompassing. So we incorporate the agricultural arts and the culinary arts. So really, it's a smaller percentage of our market, but it is a very dedicated bunch. Our area of the market is called Farmers Row. It is hustling and bustling, often an hour before the market officially opens, with people coming to make sure that they get their preferred bread or, the broccoli that looks the best, right? We're looking for the best stuff always.
I love that you're under an overpass like that. There's one other market I've been to that's in that situation, and it's in Toronto, where it saves them. They're able to have a much longer season than most markets in that snowy area. But I've been to Florida, and I would say hot and not hot is one description, and wet and non-wet is another really relevant description there. So I imagine that overpass is helpful for that.
Yes.
So you're changing your application process this year, right?
We are, yeah. So in the past, we have had like many markets, an application window. So it opens up, anyone can apply. Our returning vendors get a priority, so they get to see it a few weeks beforehand before it goes open to the general public. We've reached the point where our capacity, we physically can't grow anymore, right? We're limited in our physical space and our just capacity as staff. And with so many vendors returning this year, it just wasn't feasible for us to then open again to the public. We didn't think it would be fair. We don't want people to sink their time, sink an application fee into something when realistically we didn't have much space to offer. So this year we made the jump and are now a invitation only model where um, as we have space that becomes open in the market, we invite vendors to apply.
And so what platform are you using for your application? Is it the same as, so I noticed, I went on your site and your interest form. So you do an interest form first, and that's in Google Forms. Is the actual application in the same format?
It's not. So we use Market Spread, and our Market Spread application is a lot more in depth. So the vendor interest form was initially created as an avenue just to get to know people when we were at capacity mid-year, because things change and people want a way to sort of keep top of mind in the market. And it was very simple. Now that we've sort of transitioned our process, we're directing all new vendors to that interest form. So we can kind of get a sense of what they'd like to bring and a sense of what type of product it is so that we can keep product balance in mind when we're looking for a new vendor to invite. But our actual application and market spread goes into a lot further detail. Our vendors are asked to give us background on how they make their products, price points, pictures, samples. It's where they upload all of the documents that we need to take a peek at, insurance and commercial kitchens and growers permits. All that good stuff lives formally in market spread. But the biggest piece is just us wanting to know more about a vendor and their story. We're also a makers only market, so we have to use that application process to ensure that this is the person that is deeply involved in the product. They're growing, they're making, they're cooking, they're doing this. It's not just a resale of drop shipped items, especially when we look at the handcrafted kind of categories. I think there's, a lot of opportunity there where the consumer doesn't know if something is being handmade or not. And we do the research and the diligence to really verify that when you're coming to our market, you're seeing small businesses that they're invested in this product and you can trust that it's what they say it is.
Got it. And so I'm curious about why you decided to make it two different forms as opposed to just saying fill out the application and then when we have an opening, we'll get back to you. Is that because the application is so daunting and rigorous that you don't want to subject people to it unless they've got a pretty good chance of getting in? Is there a fee attached to your full-on application?
Yeah, it's both of those things. So there's an application fee that gets submitted. It does take a lot of staff time to go through those and assess them. And then it also is, deeply involved. We know people can spend significant time completing it, uploading images and writing descriptions and making links and things like that. So just to be a little respectful of their time there. And also our volume. We received to the vendor interest form last year, even before it was fully used in the same capacity it is now. But last year for 2024, we had over 1,000 submissions to that form. So for us to look through each of those with a fine-tooth comb really wasn't going to be feasible. And we wanted people to know that they had a way to give us that information still, that we could take a look when we needed to, but that we weren't going to be able to individually process 1,000 different things.
That's great, SJ. I wanted to ask you too, since you're on site at the market. So when you are very full and you have gone to a process where people submit, some basic information, but not all of that hardcore stuff, and then wait to get invited, do you have people showing up at your info booth or at the market and trying to push their inquiry interest form over the top and saying, "Hey, could you pull me out of the pile and put me on the top of the next?"
Absolutely.
I figured.
Absolutely, yes. And you know what? It's great.
The reason we have the interest form is we don't want anyone to feel discouraged. We wish we had the space for everybody, everybody who meets our requirements, of course. But I think that having the vendor interest form is an asset to us, having them fill it out, taking the time. It's a huge asset for us because when there is a need to fill an opening, people are so generous to give us that information and be eager to come. I mean, last minutes, if we have openings, people are really excited. And I feel like that I'm happy to listen to anybody's pitch. Yeah, of course I will direct them to that form. But I think there's no harm. And I think it's again, face-to-face community is what we're all about. So
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
We also appreciate it sometimes because we're a larger market. We have people that apply or call or email and they've never even stepped foot, So when someone actually comes in, they actually take time to see what the market's like and where they might fit in, be able to sort of envision themselves. I always appreciate that. And it's always, I never want people to feel faulted for advocating for their business. I don't want to say, oh, you showed up here and I didn't ask you to come in and talk to me, or I don't have time for that. That's not our way. We like the initiative. We can't always chat with folks for an extended amount of time, and I think people understand that and see that. But we see that they took the time to step out of their routine and their comfort zone to come and make the effort. So
Got it.
Yeah.
I think my last question, just in terms of process, is there a way that you have to sort your vendor inquiry forms so that if, for instance, we have a mustard vendor that's leaving, who in our pile of vendor inquiries sells mustard? Do you have a way to sort that so that you can easily kind of retrieve the right person to send an invitation to?
That was the beauty of using that Google form is it was very sortable, and very easy to search. A lot of that searching comes to SJ. SJ's been reviewing them on a kind of recurring basis to look through. So I don't know, what is your preferred method for looking through that?
Yeah, so as she said, we have kind of different vendor types that they can select in the Google form. So if we're looking for something specific, number one, I have that main spreadsheet that I can search through, which has tons of interest forms on it. But because I'm reviewing it weekly, I will be able to pull out and sort through people that look, like they meet our requirements, worth talking to, bringing to the team, seeing what everyone's thoughts are. And I can kind of shift them to another section of my spreadsheet to say, okay, these are not really pre-approved people, but people that we've taken the time to look at. I mean, obviously Chloe knows we all get to hear the ins and outs of the vendors that are coming and what their plans are for the future. So Chloe may know, hey, there is a mustard vendor who might be leaving in 6 months. So keep your eyes peeled. So if I see something that kind of aligns with what we're in the need for, I can move that to a separate spreadsheet, and I have that categorized as well. So it's easy for us to kind of go back to it and invite people.
The forms also really helped us kind of keep an eye for the superstars. Even though the application is not open to the public, right? Even though we're full. My mentor, John Silvera, that ran the market for 8 years before me, always said that we never want to turn around the next Michael Jordan, right? So we're always looking for the next Michael Jordan in that form. And sometimes it happens. We found out a very beloved pie shop in our neighborhood was closing for issues with their storefront. And they had filled out the vendor interest form, and now they're going to be having a mobile pie cafe at our market. So, the form gives us an opportunity to catch those sorts of things and those opportunities that we wouldn't get otherwise.
I think that's a really good point to keep in mind if you have a seasonal application or if you have an application that's closed, like where I'm full and so my application's closed, but to have some kind of form where folks can still tell you that they are interested in your market, because like you said, you might have something like a beloved pie shop or some kind of product that you have really been looking for a long time come in, and if you just say, oh, it's closed right now, like there's no, keep checking back on the website to see if it's open, you might kind of miss that info. So having at least somewhere where vendors can fill out a little interest form and say, hey, this is my contact information, this is what I sell, so you can keep an eye on that. I think that's That's
No, that
kind
makes
of
so much
important.
sense. I mean, you, in self-defense, bless you, closed that application form. But
Yeah.
I kept it open for years and years because I was afraid of missing that one superstar or somebody that makes mustard, for the love of God.
Cat's obsessed with mustard, if you can't tell. We don't get a lot of mustard here in Southern California.
We love mustard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so you never know. So that sounds like you have a great system and it's working, and having a really full market with an application that's not available to everybody is a lot of work. And I always say it's the hardest part of my job is saying no to people who come and want to vend at the market, because sometimes they have really great businesses and they're so friendly. They come to the market and talk to us and they're so lovely, but I just can't physically squeeze them in. And so, yeah, that's kind of a tough part of having a big, busy market. But it sounds like y'all have a good system for figuring that out and being able to still accommodate them when there's space available. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing with us today. That's really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
Take care.
It is so interesting to look at other markets' applications. I always get so many ideas hearing from other market managers explain their application and why they have it the way that they do. And also, I'm constantly just like cruising other market pages, just like scrolling through their application. I just find it fascinating, and it always gives me really good ideas for things I want to try with my market or that I don't want to put in my application.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too.
Mhm.
And when looking at those, and you made this change when you last revised the application at the big markets, you added a lot more explanation that people read before they fill it out. And we had done that already a few years ago, gone into listing kind of what the permits required were and that you were going to have general liability insurance and things, and spelling out a few more things before you get into it. And I think that intro page is a really key piece, especially if you're charging an application fee. It's really fair to provide plenty of information up front on what's going to be required, maybe the likelihood of being accepted to a specific market at a current time. Whether you expect experience or vendor education, you had mentioned having on your application a place where they tell you what other markets they've been in, and I think that's really important. If they haven't ever been in a market, maybe you want to mention there that, if you don't have any market experience, we're probably going to want you to take Vendor 101 and get the basics down of how you achieve your permits and how you operated the market most effectively, because we want all of our vendors to be successful. That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they filled out an application and they have a product that you like doesn't make them ready to hit the streets at a market. So just kind of giving them a little bit more information. I did extend our intro page by a lot, and I'm always kind of fine tuning it just because I was sick of like wasting my own time and the vendor's time getting halfway through the process and them like not really being into getting insurance. And it's like, well, we can't move forward unless you get it.
Right.
And either like they couldn't figure it out, or they just didn't seem interested in that, or they didn't understand that this was like a weekly commitment, or they didn't understand that, they don't get to pick their spot in the market, or some things that were just stalling out the process. And it just felt like such a waste of everyone's time. And maybe they would get a little frustrated. We didn't used to have like booth prices on our application, and I still our booth prices are like kind of specific to what category you're in, but I started putting some ranges on there so they just have an idea.
Yeah.
Because I would say, okay, it's $150, and they're like, whoa, I thought it was like $20. So it's, I just to avoid all of that kind of stuff and just kind of put it up front so they know what the deal is as much as possible. And they can decide if they want to apply or not before they apply, before anything lands in my inbox, and before they spend time filling out this long, extensive form.
I think so. I think, though, too, that you sometimes evolve into that when you've got a larger, more full market.
Yeah.
I suspect that a lot of newer markets keep it kind of vague. And I say a lot of newer markets, and I mean me when we were first starting.
Yeah.
We kept it a little vague because we didn't want anybody to hesitate to apply. We wanted everybody to apply. And if we had to negotiate terms, we might.
Exactly.
Right at the beginning, if I had a particular farm or a good product. And I was learning what the most sensible fee structure was and things. So right at the beginning, you may not want to put every little bit on your intro page because you may have some things that you're more flexible about.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, my market rules and guidelines and parameters are pretty set. I'm not changing them very much just because it's a established market. But yeah, just running other markets that are growing, or also that if I were in a position to have time to really nurture vendors along, I'd want those vendors to come and apply who don't have any experience, and I could take the time to walk them through how to, Vendor 101 is always like what I start with, and then kind of walk them through the rest of the process. Just right now, because running a large market takes up so much more staff time, and my entire 6-day work week is just really absorbed with running the market. I don't have.
Are you taking a day off now a week?
Well, I say Sundays, but don't ask my family
Okay, so
because they see me working on Sundays.
Six-ish. Six-ish work days.
Six-ish, yes. But it takes more time. I think when I ran some just like smaller neighborhood markets on the weekdays for many years, and I loved running those markets because I really had more time. They were still a lot of work to run, but I had more time to kind of take the time with each individual vendor and show them the ropes and maybe buddy them up with somebody that could, kind of explain how to be a vendor and just, ease them into the market a little bit better that way. So again, it just depends. What's your capacity? What's your bandwidth as an operator? And use that application to make it very clear to folks that are interested in your market, like what is the deal at this market?
Yeah. And as we started out saying, this episode is about designing an application that works for you, as well as being functional for your vendors and farmers that are applying. It needs to work for them in terms of ease of application, but it also needs to work for you, what the bandwidth is at your market, what your stage is at your market. Are you really, really full? So why waste people's times when you just don't have any more square footage? So it all depends on where you are to start when you're designing your application.
Yeah, I think, and on that intro page too, if you're in a full market or if you're only looking for things in very specific categories at a market and you're really not going to even entertain a lot of applications or potential vendors, on my intro page, it says, look, we're very full. My application's closed right now, but even when I reopen it at some point, I say, look, we're really full. We have limited capacity, especially in these really tight categories that I get the most applications for, prepared food and non-food. And I say, this link, I have a clickable link in my intro page. This takes you to a list. It's from the Farm Bureau, and it has days, times, and contact information for every manager for all the other markets in the city. And so I encourage you to just reach out to other markets. I know folks want to come to our big, flashy, busy Saturday, well-established large market, but really those other markets can be just as great for you. And please go explore these other markets because just the farmers market community in general is so wonderful. And if you want to be a farmers market vendor, go be a farmers market vendor. Just find a market that has space for you, physical
It's a good
capacity.
Fit. And for your category.
Yeah.
There's some markets have 16 Mexican food vendors and some markets have one.
Exactly.
And so that's where you want to go, to the one where they still have a need for that. So I think putting on the description page what's required in terms of operations, but also what kind of openings you have is really, really helpful. So of course that leads to the idea that it's important to keep it updated. So you need to not just post your application and forget about it, but go in and update as you can, as often as you get a chance, once a month maybe if you can, at least once a quarter.
Yeah.
And let people know what you've got room for. Those kind of updates reduce the time that you spend evaluating applications and going through applications. And it also reduces the chance that someone who pays an application fee and spends a lot of time on an application will be frustrated because you just don't have room. They can't get in. So give them that heads up. And
yeah, exactly. When my application does reopen, I'm going to have an application fee for the first time. We've never had one before. It's just at this point just so necessary just to kind of make everyone understand that this is like a commitment when you apply to this market. Like I'm going to have to take my time to look at your application and to process it. So, I want to make it very clear that these are the things that are even hosted at this market period or that I have room for so that people aren't, getting the wrong idea about whether or not they'll have a chance to get in. So just be really clear with your potential vendors. What are you looking for? Even if you are looking for someone in a certain category and they apply and it just gets declined for whatever reason, at least you gave them all the information up front.
Absolutely.
So
That's fair.
Designing it in a way that's fair to you and also fair to the folks interested in your market, because definitely curating your market is the magic that makes it the perfect fit for your community and promises success for your farmers and vendors. And an effective application form and review process customized to your needs and clear to prospective vendors is your magic wand. Big thanks to the market managers that joined us today to share their techniques and wizardry.
Thanks for listening today, and big thanks to MarketWorks for helping farmers market managers by putting all of the tools to succeed in one place, and for supporting Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, and Intense, the National Farmers Market Conference. Find more information and sign up for MarketWorks by clicking their logo on the resource page at farmersmarketpros.com. Then meet the MarketWorks team in person at the Intense Conference in San Diego, California on March 10th through 12th of this year. That is coming right up. Click register now on the homepage at farmersmarketpros.com, and we'll see you soon.
Please leave us a review on your podcast app or wherever you listen to Tent Talk. Let us and others know how you're enjoying the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Tent Talk. Connect with fellow Farmers Market folks in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community, and follow us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. Find online education and other resources at farmersmarketpros.com. Tent Talk is brought to you by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Tent Talk is hosted by Kat Fields-White and Bridget Myers and produced by Leandra Hayes, with original music by David Mead. Tune in next week for another great episode.